in every state, one that can serve as a template partnership for other states in this country.
Assistant Attorney General for the Fraud Division, Colin McDonnell, says the days of bilking the government out of millions of dollars with no consequences are over.
In the last 60 days, the Department of Justice has announced more than 550 fraud enforcement actions across the country, representing billions of dollars in attempted theft from the United States taxpayer. And now to the fraudsters. You reap what you sow. And your seeds are deceit, greed, and corruption. We are resolved to till every field and turn over every rock to find you and bring you to justice.
A bipartisan proposal aimed at overhauling college sports is drawing both support and criticism on Capitol Hill. The Protect College Sports Act aimed to create a national rule book for college athletics, establishing federal standards for transferring eligibility, NIL agreements, and industry oversight. But not everyone is on board. Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno says the bill does not do enough to protect female athletes, and he has pledged to vote no.
I mean, I haven't run into a single solitary human being that thinks it's a good idea to have men competing with women. That's totally insane. Talk to any mom or dad of a female collegiate athlete, and they'll tell you it's patently unfair. It's actually dangerous. And look, we got to expose the Democrats for their insanity. I think it's actually a 95-5 issue, honestly. The president's been clear, men should not play in women's sports. We got to codify it in the law because God knows what administrations are coming in the future.
And finally, there's a screen time epidemic in the youth of America, and it's starting in the schools.
Today, kids between the ages of 2 and 12 average about 5 hours of daily screen time. That number jumps to 9 hours a day of screen time for teenagers. This is all happening while reading and math proficiency scores stay at record low rates. According to ladtech.com, the average per-student spending on technology in the United States is $300 to $800. This budget consists of laptops, tablets, cybersecurity, licenses, and professional development. The FCC is currently running a review of a $3 billion E-rate program to address the declining academic performance and to see if the internet services provided by the program are supporting positive educational outcomes. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr went on Fox News to speak more on the initiative.
And we're seeing research pour in now that's showing that excessive screen time is now being associated with reading disabilities, with math comprehension problems, with cognitive declines. And again, you can look at the rise of screens in the data showing that we're getting poorer and poorer educational outcomes.
The chairman would also comment on schools who would only place restrictions on school-owned devices, thus leaving student-owned devices on campus to roam the internet freely.
There are school districts that have read our law as only requiring them to put internet safety procedures in place on the devices that the school owns. So if you bring your own device to a network supported by this program, you don't necessarily have any filters on where you can go.
I'm Caleb Castile.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
For more than 150 years, Blue Mountain Christian University has been committed to educating students through a Christian worldview rooted in Scripture and truth. Our close-knit campus community, affordable degree options, and dedicated faculty prepare students for lives of faith, leadership, and service. With on-campus and online programs, BMCU meets students where they are without compromising what matters most. Learn more at bmc.edu and move mountains with Blue Mountain Christian University.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mama for Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey there, friends, and welcome to my favorite time of day, getting to spend time with you, prescribing hope for healthy families. Happy Friday, everybody. We have made it to the first Friday in June, and I cannot even believe that we are in June. I don't know about you, but 2026 just feels like it is going so fast. I was working with my producer yesterday and scheduling shows out already for the fall. We're already talking about, am I going to say it? Yeah, I am. We're already talking about Christmas. We are. I know we're not quite to the halfway point, but that's all. I will refrain. But one thing I am excited about that's going on this summer is the 10 Commandments Project. We've been talking about that that in 2026. It is a children and youth discipleship project hosted by Pastor Joseph Parker, who hosts the Hour of Intercession radio program here on American Family Radio. Love to hear that man pray, and he is challenging families this summer to memorize the 10 Commandments. You can get a free t-shirt if you do that. There's also a speech project and a community outreach project. If you want more information about that, then you can email Pastor Parker at jparker@afa.net. That's jparker@afa.net. And you can find out more about that. And I would encourage you to be intentional about discipling your kids. So often, one of the most common questions I hear is, how do I get my kid's face out of a screen? And the answer is actually pretty simple. You've got to give them a compelling alternative. Sometimes that comes with a little incentive. Pastor Parker has not been shy at all about incentivizing. I did not say bribing. I said incentivizing, paying kids for fair day's work. And so there are all kinds of ways that you can do that. Also want to invite you to AFA at the Ark, October 29th and 30th. You can learn more about that at afa.net/events. That is at the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter in Kentucky. And there's pricing for adults and for children and all kinds of details about all of the events that will be there, who will be there, what you will be able to learn, but a great potential experience for your family. So I want to invite you to those two things that we are promoting this week. Now, it is Friday, and so I am going to talk about our healthy habit for today. If you've been joining along since January, if you can believe it, we're almost to the halfway point of healthy habits. And I want to ask you, how's it going? How is your family doing? Have any of these habits made a difference? I believe it is in the daily obedience that we have to the Lord that God works. And this week, we were so blessed to interview the Blackaby boys. That would be Henry Blackaby's son and grandsons, who have written an updated Experiencing God. And that is the whole premise of the book, that God is in the business of working through the ordinary, mundane interactions. And that's a lot of what we're doing through Healthy Habits. We started in January with 4 core spiritual disciplines. Then we moved through 6 rhythms that your family needs, 8 communication techniques. And now we are going through 12 weeks in the summer. We're talking about tech. We've already talked about it a little bit, about reading with your family, about intentionally streaming what you're watching, choosing what you're watching, curating the things that are coming into your home, and being in pictures. We talked about just curating those as a tech habit. And today I am continuing in this. We'll talk about vacation, unplugging on vacation, taking a vacation and actually unplugging. This is a really important tech habit. And then next week, we'll start talking specifics about tech-free times, tech-free zones. So let's just dive into it and talk about this really odd vacation paradox that we have right now, because we live in the most connected era in human history. We are more connected globally to our family. You know, it used to be, I remember when I was in the 9th grade, one of my classmates moved and we had a goodbye party for her. Like, it was pretty much like a funeral, because we knew that we didn't have FaceTime. We didn't have Facebook or Fakebook, as some of my guests have called it. We just had a few little pen pal letters and that was it. But now when somebody moves, even going to college, we can be connected. But at the same time, the paradox is that more families have never felt less connected. They're more disconnected relationally than ever. Now, I want you to think a generation ago, since nostalgia is trending. Let's jump on this trend, okay? When families left for a vacation, they truly left. Like, when you were out for the day, you were out. We put on this thing called an answering machine. And at first, we didn't even have a way to check that. You had to wait till you got home to check your answering machine. And you know what? Somehow, during that, businesses still survived. People still kept their jobs. Churches found substitutes for volunteers. Little league teams, I know this is very controversial, gasp. They actually just played without you. I know. And the team went on, and friends just simply waited to catch up until you got back. Now today, we carry our offices, our social circles, our sports scores, our volunteer responsibilities. Every news alert, we carry those with us. It goes right out the door with us whenever we go. And we may physically leave, but mentally, we never arrive. We stay mentally checked out. Now, you've seen it. the dad who is taking a conference call at a theme park. Like maybe you're waiting in line to get on the ride and there's this dad kind of obviously having a work call and his family's just kind of waiting awkwardly nearby. Or mom is answering emails from the hotel pool, or the grandparent is refreshing market updates maybe, while you're out with the family, or the teenager is scrolling sports scores, or maybe dad is too, or maybe mom while everyone else is talking around the dinner table. Now, I am not calling out anyone. If you feel persecuted, I apologize, because we all are guilty of this in some way or another. And the problem isn't technology itself. The problem is the constant connectivity stealing the very thing that vacation was intended to provide: relational presence and connection, checking out, resting, reconnecting with family members. And research actually increasingly shows that people experience the greatest health benefits from vacation when you're fully disengaged. Now, I know this is not rocket science like my husband does. This is just common sense. And yet somehow we all shrug and say, yeah, we know that, but cue the 4,000 excuses why we can't disconnect physically or mentally. But studies also suggest that this constant connectivity really creates a work-life conflict, and it reduces our ability to be fully present. It used to be when we come home from the day, there was no remote work. Now there's just these nebulous boundaries. It's really, are you working? Are you not? Are you flexible? Are you not? And so today we're going to really challenge each other to unplug on vacation. Now, before you start saying, hey, I'm not taking a vacation this summer, or a vacation is not financially possible, hang in there, because this is for everybody. Because if you are thinking, okay, I that's not in the cards for us, listen, a vacation can be a 2-week grand adventure, or it can be a day trip to your own town. The goal is not spending money. I'm talking about intentionally spending time together at home. And everybody is going to have at least one part of one day this summer to do that, for sure. And the goal is creating margin and memory and meaningful connection. So really, again, thinking about why this matters, we have really changed so much from one generation to the other. And when our prior generations, when we took vacations, that really meant a vacation. No email, no smartphone, no group text, no expectation of an immediate response. People just learned to wait. And now we don't wait. Work is following us everywhere. Volunteer commitments are following us. Sports apps, social media, news, all of those things. We have forgotten how to be unavailable, and we are teaching our children to be unavailable. Now, this is really convicting to me, because as our children are growing up, they're massively distracted. Like when you go to visit and you're visiting your adult children, all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're just checking their phone. They don't have time for me. They're distracted. And guess what? We've taught them to do that. Because just because technology allows us to have that kind of access in our life doesn't mean that relationships can survive it. Now, again, this is not rocket science, but nearly 40% of people in one research study I looked at reported using smartphones for work during vacation. So that's almost half of people said, yep, I get on my smartphone and I get on work. And guess what? Over 90% of them said it wasn't good. I didn't enjoy it. It did not contribute to my vacation. And research on constant workplace connectivity shows it does negatively impact our well-being, because we never fully detach. We are always on. So we know it, and yet we don't do it. So let's dive into that. And let's look at this practically, because it's so relatable. Like maybe you spend money on a beach vacation, or maybe just go to the beach for the day, or a local park. But, you've got a parent checking their email every 20 minutes and, responding to volunteer messages or text messages. The kids, meanwhile, get bored while mom and dad are working. So they start getting on their gaming app, and everyone's technically, physically together, but nobody is actually together. And when your family remembers a vacation 5 years from now, what do you want them to remember? The attractions or your attention? That is the most important thing. And that is something that fits any vacation budget, because kids notice who is looking at them, who's engaged, who's listening, who seems distracted, who always has an eye on a screen. Kids have an incredible radar for this. And we know that even the presence of a smartphone in a conversation, even having it by our side when we're talking to our spouse, to our kids, it diminishes the benefits of those face-to-face interactions, because our attention's divided. And the number one emotion that people feel when you have a phone is annoyance and disrespect. That is what we feel. We're annoyed and we feel disrespected because you think the phone is more important. But when parents unplug, that is your opportunity for conversations to deepen. Often you have less conflict because you're paying attention and you notice things earlier, and it doesn't just come to a head, and that's not the only time that you're addressing it. Children are more likely to open up because they feel seen and heard and known and loved. And that shared experience becomes a memory because children are not going to remember how productive you were on their vacation. They are not going to sit back and look 10 years from now and say, oh, wow, you really did a great job balancing work and you worked a lot and got a lot done, even though you were still here on vacation. They're going to remember you sat and watched a movie with me. You walked on the beach with me. You sat and played a game with me. And when we see that families really aren't vacationing together anymore, they're just kind of having a parallel traveling experience. They're all going to the same place, but nobody is mentally in the same world. They are creating a different world, a different story, a different set of relationships, a totally different experience because every screen is creating its own reality. And so you maybe have one kid who's really immersed in a game and is talking with all of the people who's on that game, or another is in social media drama and commenting back and forth, or a parent who's immersed in work emails. Another one is following sports games or playoffs, and the family is sitting side by side, but their experience of the vacation, their memories are totally different. Now, connection doesn't happen accidentally. Those family memories are built from shared experiences and most of all, shared laughter, even when there's chaos, even when things don't go well. Those shared challenges, shared stories, not just simply, yeah, we were in the same car in the same hotel room. That's not the thing. The greatest competition for family connection isn't so much bad content that's competing with your family. It's just hyper individualized content. So when every family member is consuming a personalized feed, there's just fewer common reference points to create that shared memory to say, hey, remember when grandma burned that apple pie? Oh yeah, nope, that's just me. Okay, still a sore subject, but we die laughing every time we think about it. And vacations increase and strengthen your family's shared stories because there is something really powerful about saying, hey, remember when we went here, we did this, that shared experience that they participated in together. Now, again, one of the most common questions I hear is, well, how do we get our kids off their phones? Well, actually, it's pretty easy. Don't make the screen the enemy because so often we lead with lecturing. I'm guilty of this too. Get off your phone, get off your phone, get off your phone. You simply got to give them a compelling alternative. You have got to, kids can see a lecture coming from a mile away. So instead of focusing on what you're taking away, focus on what you're inviting them into. It's not, the goal isn't less screen time. It's more life off screen. That's what we want them to have. Not just be bored, give them something better, not just something different. Kids are rarely going to choose boredom over entertainment, but they will often choose adventure over entertainment. When we come back, I'm going to give you some practical tips for how you can really shake up your family dynamic. If you feel like you're in a rut, if you feel like you're in a season of conflict, if you feel like your kids are disengaged, one of the best things that you can do is something unexpected. Shake things up a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about how to do that, how to make your kids participants in your family vacation, not just passengers. And we'll talk about creating moments that are worth missing screen time for. And I'll give you some home front headlines. I'll see you on the other side of this break.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. A shocking number of doctors, nurses, and others in the medical profession are posting online messages threatening to injure conservatives. And in many cases, they're hoping conservatives suffer violent injuries. A labor and delivery nurse at Baptist Health Boca Raton in Florida posted a video hoping Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt suffers medical complications during childbirth. In New York City, a pair of detectives were manhandled and denied treatment at NYC Langone Hospital in the Cobble Hill section of Brooklyn. The The medical team thought the detectives worked for ICE. The hospital apologized, but former Mayor Eric Adams said it was a total moral collapse, and apologies are simply not good enough. Those working in hospitals swear an oath to care for their patients. Clearly, that oath has been violated. And now we have to wonder just how many patients were either denied treatment or given inadequate treatment simply because of their conservative political beliefs. I'm Todd Stearns.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we are announcing 2 tours coming up in 2027, March of 2027. We're going to Greece and we're going to Italy. The Greece tour we call the Footsteps of Paul, and you're going to follow the footsteps of St. Paul in the country of Greece. And then the Italian tour, the Tour of Italy, Venice, Florence, Pisa, Rome. We're calling the Make Lasagna Great Again tour. And these are coming up in March of 2027. And if you want to read all about them, the itinerary, the cost, everything you need to know about these tours coming up in March of Greece and Italy, go to tours.afa.net. That's tours.afa.net. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of good fellowship, and see some of the most historic and iconic sites in the world.
Without even seeing them show up, I could feel like the darkness.
Jamie Sanchez is another Christian business proprietor who has been targeted for his faith. His Drip Cafe was opened to serve and help the homeless of downtown Denver.
We believe sex outside of marriage and homosexuality is a sin in God's eyes. And the enemy and his minions decided to use that as a platform.
Jesus told us persecution would come.
I would see them, just the rage and the hate. I pictured them doing that at the foot of the cross to Jesus. And I just remembered what he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And so I had to position my heart that way.
The Jamie Sanchez story is one of the videos of the Impact series at stream.afa.net.
It's been a crazy, crazy ride.
See Jamie's story and much more at stream.afa.net.
Oh, I've been desperate, cried those loud prayers, like Job on his knees, saying, Lord, I need more than a little help. I've been surrounded, felt fear on all sides, like Daniel and the lions. I know when I fight, I don't fight by myself. When I needed rescue, Jesus, you came through. Oh, in my hardest season, your promise held true. And every time I've given in, Lord, you've proven again that you're still my Savior now. Jesus, you came through when I needed rescue.
Welcome back, friends. That is Rescue by Jordan St. Cyr. I hope you're having a great Friday. And wherever you are, I pray that God is meeting you where you are. I know there are so many of you facing so many different things as we are headed into the heart of 2026, really the midway point. I pray that God would meet you where you are. And I thank you so much for joining in today as we're talking about this week's family habit. And that habit is unplugging on vacation now. Used to be a little harder, used to be just mom and dad that we were talking to, but now it's hard to help kids unplug on vacation because so many kids are accustomed to something called digital soothing. Now, this is soothing yourself with a digital environment, with a screen. Any uncomfortable emotion you have, it is soothed with a screen. Are you bored? Here, watch the screen. Are you anxious? Here, watch the screen. Are you angry? Here, please calm down, watch the screen. And we have got to stop that. We have got to push back against that. And we've got to name and claim emotions and model responding to those in a healthy way. And I talked about that in one of our last communication habits about naming and claiming emotions. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that. But as far as helping kids get engaged on a trip, sometimes, especially if you've got preteens or teenagers or maybe even adult children, maybe they're a little less than enthusiastic about going on a trip together, going on a vacation together. They think, really, like, I'm not that excited. And that can be really hurtful because you think, oh, I've put time and expense into this. And the fact that you don't want to be with me, listen, a great way to get kids engaged, no matter what age, is to let them help plan it. So let them help navigate, rotate them out if they're big enough and old enough to sit in the front, or if they can, sit safely and have navigation, teach them how to navigate, teach them a life skill. Kids love to be engaged like that. Give them a family photo challenge, create a scavenger hunt, let them choose the restaurants along the way. These are also great life planning skills where they're planning out timings of things, or where you're going to have a travel exchange, or whatever it is. Maybe just something simple as teaching them a card game that you used to play when you were growing up. Or let them choose, if you have the means to have a certain experience, let them choose bikes or kayaks or whatever it might be, or explore somewhere new together, this park or that park, this lake or that lake. You can do it to fit any budget. And the best way to compete with the screen is genuine engagement. We want to make our kids participants in the vacation, not just passengers. And many kids really retreat into their screens because they just feel like, I'm just a passive observer. If you give them ownership, then they will be more engaged. So asking questions like, hey, what's one thing that you want our family to do today? Or here's the options for today. What's your priority? Where's one place we should stop? What's something that we haven't tried before? And that can really help, because most of the time our go-to is just to restrict devices. Everybody get off your phone. No phones for this time. But you don't give a more compelling alternative. And so that is really what we've got to fill in there. And sometimes it may be slow going at first. It may feel a little rusty to have a great conversation or a spontaneous adventure or a funny family competition, or just something as simple as enjoying a sunset or a campfire. But the memories that endure from those kinds of experience are never, ever going to match what's going to happen on a screen. They're never going to be less than what's happened on a screen. They are always going to be more than that. And so maybe when you're planning a trip, think 5 years from now, ask your family, what do we hope everyone remembers about this trip? And that question will tend to recalibrate the conversation really, really quickly. Screens aren't winning because they're better than family time. They're winning because they're easier than putting forth the effort to create a shared experience. Now, another competition for families who are trying to do family time together, whether that's a staycation, vacation, day trip, whatever it is FOMO, something called FOMO. Now, this is an acronym, FOMO, for fear of missing out. There's actually a scientific scale that we can use in research to measure FOMO. It's a real phenomenon, and it's basically the anxiety that someone else is having more fun and seeing something better, being included when somewhere we're not. Now, used to, when we go on vacation, we have no idea what our friends or neighbors were doing until we got back, and that was blessed. They say ignorance is bliss, and in this case, I believe that is very true. But now kids are following social media and they're seeing, oh, well, I'm on this family trip, but I'm missing the birthday party of the year. And, oh, these friends are having a sleepover every single night and I didn't get to go on that. And these friends seem like they're getting closer. And what if they forget about me when I get back? And it seems so silly, but it really is a reality for today's kids. And it's not occasional. It is constant. And their phones are providing a real-time highlight reel of everyone else's lives. I mean, they're at the beach, but they're wondering, what are my friends doing back home? You might be at a theme park, but you're checking social media instead of like talking to people in the line that you're waiting for. And you're comparing, oh, this is my family's experience. This is what's happening right now. But look at this curated online experience. Look at the highlights of someone else's more glamorous vacation. And they can become so focused on what they're missing somewhere else that they miss what's going on right in front of them. And FOMO is stealing joy from families today because you're worrying about somebody else's today instead of living in your own today. But it's hard for kids. We've got to have a measure of empathy because children's brains are still developing self-control and perspective. And something that can seem so obvious to us can feel very real to them. And they're naturally wired to place a high value on peer acceptance and belonging. And social media is creating the illusion that everyone else's life is so much better, so much more fun, even when that's far from the reality. So how do we fight FOMO? Well, we've got to teach JOMO is what I'm going to say, but I know my kids are going to cringe when I say that, but there can be joy in missing out. There's a joy in that because we need to be very clear with our kids. Not every event deserves your attention. You are going to be fine if you do not go to that event. Not every notification requires your response. Not every experience needs to be documented on social media. Sometimes there can be joy in checking out. And I will tell you over and over and over again, when I talk to kids who do check out of their social media, they enjoy the experience so much better. And sometimes there can be a freedom in an adult setting that tone, setting that even for maybe you're having a multi-generational family experience and you just set that expectation for all the cousins. Hey, this is going to be checkout time. We're checking out of our tech time. And then there's kind of a release in that, like, okay, well, my parents they said I can't, and they kind of have an excuse for that. But I see increasingly college students who are choosing this intentionally, saying, I want to be present where I am. So I'm not going to document this on social media. I'm going to delete the social media app. That's a beautiful thing. Instead of thinking, okay, what am I missing there? Really, we need to train ourselves to ask, what am I missing right here that's going on in front of me? Help kids notice conversations that are going on around you, the scenery, the laughter, the adventure, the people that they're with. And FOMO really loses its power when kids are actively engaged, not entertained, engaged. They're playing games together as a family. I'm telling you, there's one thing that my family loves is watching their grandma play charades. It is the funniest thing ever. If you want to engage kids, like that is something novel. That's something different. You can ask them, what would you ask me to do? What would you ask me to play with you? Where would you ask me to go with you if you knew I wouldn't say no? And then sometimes shaking it up and just saying, yeah, I'll play that video game with you. Yeah, I'll try that food that that I think I hate. Let them have some say in that. Create family traditions. Create all the inside jokes that you can laugh about for years to come. It is just hard to worry about somewhere else when you're making memories here, because FOMO says, hey, what I need is somewhere else. But commitment says, hey, God has given me a gift right here today. And we can reinforce that with scripture. Like, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Even if it's raining and we plan something outside, even if, something is not going well. The biblical antidote to FOMO is gratitude. Just learning to receive today's gifts instead of chasing whatever tomorrow might have a vague possibility of it. And that is what we need to do, is to be present. And listen, not every family is going to get to go have international travel or an expensive resort or a luxury experience. That is completely fine. Some of the richest family memories happen just fishing in a local pond, or playing cards at home, or exploring a state park, making pancakes on a Saturday morning, or just spending an afternoon where you're not working and not rushing. God works through those ordinary moments. So I encourage you to cultivate those moments, whether it's a vacation, a staycation, or just an afternoon or a Saturday morning, whether it's around your dinner table, during your walk, while you're traveling. Your family's staycation may be exactly the gift that God intended in this season, because a value in vacation isn't measured by the miles traveled, the money spent. It's by the attention that is gifted to your family. So there's lots of low cost or no cost ideas that you could have. You could just have a backyard camp out. I know I used to hate this when my husband would say it, because I'm not really a sleep outside kind of gal. But hey, I would take one for the team and make it to at least 10, before I sneak inside to go get in my bed. But kids love something as novel as just camping in your backyard. Be a tourist in your own town for a day. Have a family Olympics, doing that. Having, what was that? The extreme Olympics, I know there used to be a show on TV. I'm not thinking of the name of it, but my kids would make that up and they would have that with all the obstacle courses and everything. Maybe it's just water balloons. Maybe it's a board game marathon, a movie day. Maybe you're going to try something adventurous for cooking. Maybe you'll explore nature. Maybe you'll serve together as a family, like I talk about on Tuesday. Maybe you'll watch old home movies. Kids love to see movies and pictures of themselves. So maybe you curate that. Maybe it's a family talent show, a bike adventure. I mean, there's so many things that you could do. You could have a family bucket list day where you put some boundaries on what you can do. I mean, all kinds of things. Or maybe from sunrise to sunset. I am totally checked out of any tech, and I am just yours. Kids are not going to judge vacations by the price tag. They are going to judge them in value by the attention, the laughter, the traditions, and the togetherness. And actually, my producer's just handing me a note telling me that Home Depot has something called Build Once a Month with projects for kids and snacks. And so there's all kinds of free resources in your communities that you have. Your kids, your family, do not buy the lie that your family needs a perfect vacation. They need family members who are present. And so just decide before you leave. Let me walk you through some practical strategies. I'll give you 5 of them quickly here, okay? Decide before you leave. What are the expectations for tech engagement? Are you going to check work email? How often? Under what circumstances? Who's going to be on their phone when? What is the expectation? If you don't set the boundaries before vacation, you don't want to be having those discussions and negotiations in the moment. Number 2, designate a communication window. So instead of constant monitoring, say, hey, once in the morning, once in the evening, whatever, or not at all, whatever it is. Hey, this is the hour that we have. Everybody can get on their tech. You can check your email, you can check your social media, you can message, you can stream, you can do whatever. This is our designated tech check-in time. And really a 5-minute scheduled check is really different from just being available all day long. Number 3, family accountability. Now, this is one that's not always popular, but I really believe in it. Give your kids permission to call you out. So if you set the expectations, you set the tech check-in time, and somebody's violating that, make a family code word. Feel free to call them out. Let your kids do that respectfully. Of course, they have to do it respectfully. But yeah, if you've agreed to it, kids love to hold adults accountable. It's so fun to put the shoe on the other foot and say, get off your phone, Dad. They love to say that. My family's way of saying that is, hey, hang up and hang out. You know, we're supposed to be engaged right here. And make it playful, make it expected, and that is helpful. Number 4, create intentional device-free moments. Create a moment where nobody has their device, whether that's a meal, a walk, a game, a specific event. Not every hour necessarily has to be screen-free, but some things should be tech-free times. And number 5, replace scrolling with something better. So instead of checking your email, your sports scores, your stock updates, your social media, try reading aloud, playing a card game, telling your family stories, sharing adventures, nature walks, just something that is really silly and practical. I don't know how, but I've started in my house. I have college guys who like to do puzzles. I buy puzzles that will be appealing to college guys because it's something so different. It's something, nobody has a puzzle in their dorm. They're looking for novelty. Maybe that's a record player. Maybe that's old photo albums. Grandparents can really lean into this. Bring out vintage show and tell. Kids would love that. You can try so many different things because listen, God's pattern for our life includes rest. A vacation is not laziness. Not doing anything is not wrong. Rest is part of God's design. And from creation onward, there are rhythms of work and worship and rest in Scripture. We were just never intended to operate in a perpetual status of continual availability 24/7. Every notification is competing for your attention, and our attention shapes our affection. And we want to shape our affection toward the things of God, and that includes your family. That affection shapes those relationships. So make your notifications, shift your attention to your family, shift your affection, and shape your relationship, because where your attention goes, those relationships will grow. So this summer, don't just plan a vacation. Plan your availability, whether that's just a day at the lake or an afternoon at home. How present will you be? Because one day your children aren't going to remember all of the productivity they had. They're going to remember the gift of your presence. Listen, I got Homefront headlines coming right up.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real, and yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it. The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
Hey everybody, Walker Wildman here. We just got done filming here at Wall Builders Library in Aledo, Texas with Stephen McDowell, Tim Barton, Rick Green, and myself. Episode 9 of AFA at Home, One Nation Under God, celebrating America's 250th anniversary. That's our theme. That's our title and subtitle for this video session. Coming out very soon for you. Stay tuned on July 4th, 2026, on America's 250th birthday. We're going to release this video. It's jam-packed full of American history, why we're here, why our founding fathers did what they did, why they fought and died for our nation. Stay tuned. Make sure to check us out at stream.afa.net. Follow all of AFA's major social media platforms, and make sure you share this with family and friends. America was founded as a nation under God, but the U.S. Supreme Court has broken our national relationship with God. Many court rulings have contributed, but 3 stand out. In 1962, the court removed prayer from public schools. In 1963, the court removed Bible reading from public schools. And lastly, in 1980, the court removed the 10 Commandments from America's classrooms. The Supreme Court broke our relationship with God, and any restoration of that relationship must include the Supreme Court. And a vacancy on the Supreme Court could soon be coming. So please support AFA Action's urgent legal work to help President Trump select and the U.S. Senate confirm godly constitutional justices for the Supreme Court. We put thousands of hours of research into potential nominees. We use our networks with the Trump administration and the U.S. Senate to promote the good nominees and oppose the bad ones. AFA Action needs the resources of supporters like you to help maximize our efforts. So please visit afaaction.net to learn more and donate today.
Welcome back, friends. That is Anymore by Kane, and such a great truth that God couldn't love you any more than He does right now. Listen, welcome to this Friday edition of the show. We talked about our healthy habit for this week, which is unplugging on vacation. Whether you are staying in your home for the afternoon or going on a grand adventure for a month or the summer, I encourage you to set boundaries now for tech. And some of those things that are difficult to set boundaries on are the headlines that are coming to us. And the way that the headlines are presented are designed to make us worried, to make us anxious, to seek more information, because we feel like somehow that gives us an illusion of control. Like, well, if I know more about it, then I can protect my family. And there's some truth to that, but I have looked at the home front headlines. These are headlines that impact your home, and I'm going to give you a rundown, because really the best way for us to consume the news is to get it from a trusted source, get just enough information that we know what's going on, why it's important to us, and how we should respond to it. And that's what I'm going to dive into right now. Some headlines that I have been following that are impacting families, and again, how you can respond to it. One headline that caught my eye this week is a headline about college students reaching record levels of anxiety. Now, these researchers reviewed 35 years of data. That's a long time to look at. And this data involved nearly 83,000 college students in particular. And they found that perfectionism has steadily increased. Now, this is no surprise to me at all, because I've shared the story before. As I did a suicide prevention event in my community, I gave all of the students a Post-it note as they walked in, asked them, what do you see on social media that your parents don't know about? And asked them to write that on the Post-it note and put it on a board. Now, the parents were at this event and they were on the other side of the room, couldn't wait to go and see what was on there. They thought it was going to be violence and explicit things and all kinds of inappropriate things, but I was really shocked to see one variation of a word. Now, the kids did not talk to each other or, conspire to make this one word, but that word was a variation of the word perfect, perfection. They are growing up in a world that's curated for them online, and they feel pressure to be perfect. Young adults especially are experiencing greater fear of failure. We used to not be afraid to fail because that was a normal part of growing up, but we're also seeing kids who are afraid of judgment because of the vitriol that comes to them on social media. Anxiety about making a mistake because a mistake can be put on blast. And just recently I was talking with a college student who had talked about a very, very mild statement that she had put out on social media, one comment that just expressed her beliefs. There was, in my estimation, nothing wrong with what she said, but it was contrary to the values of a lot of people in her school. And she got death threats over it. And this had been several years ago, and she still was in tears about it. Heartbreaking. All of these things are linked to higher rates of anxiety and depression. We need to know that today's kids aren't just trying to succeed. They feel pressure to be flawless in succeeding. Not only should they should succeed perfectly. And we know practically that success does not come without failure. Even Albert Einstein, if I'm remembering correctly, or Thomas Edison, one of the great inventors, said that. I haven't discovered the way to succeed without discovering many, many more ways to fail. And many students really believe the lie that their value comes from their achievements rather than their character. And as parents and grandparents at home, we are subtly reinforcing this by complimenting their achievements, their grades, their sports accolades, their talents, their skills, rather than complimenting their characters. One of the reasons why I talk a lot about really valuing and affirming, giving words of affirmation for their character, telling them, hey, you showed self-control in that game. Hey, you were really brave in that game. Get up after you struck out. That takes bravery. You showed self-control by not throwing your helmet, or whatever it is. Affirming the character traits, because social media may amplify this problem. But again, researchers are suggesting, as we already know, really, that deeper cultural forces are at work, because we, again, are being part of the problem by reinforcing that perfectionism, by looking at our kids as products to really curate rather than people to invest in. God calls us to faithfulness, not flawlessness. So we've got to teach children that mistakes are normal. We've got to be honest about our mistakes, share stories of when you failed, when you fell down, when you failed spectacularly, and how it helped you grow. It didn't ruin your life. We've got to celebrate effort and perseverance and character as much as we celebrate achievement, and never miss an opportunity to remind children their identity comes from being loved by God, not from the qualifications on their resume. Because we know from Romans 5:8, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So perfectionism is saying, I am what I achieve, but the gospel says, I am who God says I am. That is so important. No surprise that we're continuing to see headlines talking about declining mental health in young people today. We are seeing some areas of bright spots, and one of those was a headline that popped out to me this week about church attendance. Now, a recent report found an association, again, this is not rocket science, this is not surprising. Regular church attendance is correlated with lower rates of depression and loneliness. Who knew? Go figure. Researchers really point to the protective benefits of community and belonging and a shared purpose and meaningful relationships. And so we see today kids, as I've talked about at the beginning of the show, kids report unprecedented levels of loneliness despite being connected digitally constantly. They are very relationally disconnected because many of those connections that they're making online are not people who are invested in them, who care about them. In fact, increasingly, they're robots, they're AI chatbots that emulate human emotions, that seem like they care about you, that remember more things than mom or dad, that tell you what you want to hear instead of the truth that may be helpful to you to prevent destruction later on. And families underestimate the mental health value of belonging to that healthy faith community, about being around people who see you at your best and your worst, at the high points of your life and the low points of your life. Those people who are going to show up with casseroles or whatever food they're going to bring over. I'm from the South. We bring casseroles, whatever it is. You can also always bring barbecue or Mexican food. Like, food is a love language of care, but it's people who are going to walk alongside you. And church provides relationships across generations. So maybe older kids are invested in younger kids, and that makes them feel competent and confident that God has equipped them to serve. Maybe they are meeting with older mentors who are their life group leaders, their Sunday school teachers, and walking in community with them. It is so important to do because church was never intended just to be a weekly event that we check off on a checklist. God designed people for community, and our faith is strengthened not just through what we believe, but how we belong to the body of Christ. So I encourage you, go back to, this is habit number 3 now, prioritize regular, consistent participation, plugging into a church. You can go back and listen to that Third Friday show if you want more tips on how to plug into a church, especially if you are someone who has experienced the very real problem of being hurt by a church, because church is imperfect people. And it's kind of cliche, but I've heard it said that it's a hospital for sinners. It's not a museum for saints. And we are going to be messy. Life is messy. But it is encouraging to see research show that those faith practices together strengthen identity. And Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says, don't give up meeting together, because the opposite of loneliness is not filling our schedule with activity. It's belonging somewhere. And one place that you can belong is in the body of Christ. So what is something that you could do to help your family's mental health? You can get plugged into a church. Another overlooked family health habit that we talked about actually during routines, headlines that are showing this are sleep patterns. Really, we're seeing more attention on sleep because sleep is a good and godly thing. God designed our bodies to sleep. And, we say things like sleep is for babies. And whoever said that obviously never had a baby or was just blessed to have a baby that slept well, because babies usually don't sleep that great. But when we see how much sleep impacts us in a world that is constantly on, where you can constantly stream, where marketers are trying to keep you scrolling later and later into the night because there's more opportunity for exposure to advertisers and marketing, we are seeing that really our overall health declines. It impacts your immune system, not just your mood, but long-term health impacts. Because this particular research that I was looking at, is this headline found that teens who stay up later and wake up later, they tend to consume more calories, snack more frequently, skip breakfast, and be less physically active. So this is not surprising at all, but it is kind of a natural rhythm for teens. But we really need to prioritize and model good sleep, having good sleep hygiene, having a good bedtime routine, morning routine. We talked about all of those things before. And I just want to reinforce that, if you're having conflict in your home, it may be because everybody's sleepy and grumpy. Maybe you're just not getting good sleep. And maybe if you would pay attention to that and maybe get that in line, it might improve things, because we sometimes focus on nutrition or exercise or even behavior, but we overlook the impact of sleep. Sleep impacts mood, attention, learning, behavior, appetite, motivation. And again, a lot of teen struggles in particular that can appear to be just behavioral, bad attitude stuff. It can be really chronic sleep deprivation. So sleep is not a sign of weakness. Rest is a part of God's design for human flourishing. And when we sleep in a good way, it teaches stewardship of the body that God has entrusted to us. And Psalm 127:2 has become one of my new favorite verses. He grants sleep to his beloved. So he loves us and he gives us sleep. You can't out-parent, you can't outmaneuver chronic sleep deprivation. So really, I encourage you to assess and really think about that. Now, when we're still talking about some encouraging news, because I feel like bringing you some good news on this Friday, another good news thing that I saw this week was actually the 988 suicide hotline. Now, since that has been implemented, 911 is the phone number for physical emergencies that you call. And many of you probably have seen the show of calling 911. 988 is a mental health hotline, and researchers did find that the launch of this suicide and crisis lifeline was associated with about 4,400 fewer suicide deaths among teens and young adults than expected during its first 2.5 years. Now, every life saved is worth celebrating. Every life saved, because every life is precious in the sight of God. From even preconception all the way through death and eternity, life is precious to God. And we have been seeing this, I've been following this with great concern for several years, as suicide has now become the second leading cause of death for young people. And it really breaks my heart that there are some young people who are more afraid of living than they are of dying. And youth mental health challenges remain significant. And so this study provides more evidence. We have evidence already, but evidence that intervention works. Many times people are hesitant to bring it up. They don't want to give ideas to somebody who didn't have ideas before. But research really shows that talking saves lives. So asking about that conversation saves lives. Knowing that help is available. And we always want to connect kids to help. But one thing that I tell kids everywhere I go is that anytime anyone even makes a joke about their own life, about ending their life or the lack of value in their life, I always teach kids to stop and say, hey, what you said concerns me. Let's talk about that. Can I ask you about that? Don't just laugh it off. Always go to a trusted adult, and parents should know where to turn before a crisis develops, because every life bears the image of God. So for teenagers, they can have this number on their phone. If you're ever in a crisis period and you don't know who else to call, at least you can call this. But you really want to connect them to a real adult in their life who is trusted, who's going to walk alongside them in a healthy relationship. And hopefully ideally that's going to be their parents. Hope is always worth extending. Asking for help is a sign of wisdom. It is not a weakness. And as Christian families, we want to create homes where struggles can be discussed openly without shame. Galatians 6:2 says, carry one another's burdens, and in so doing, fulfill the law of Christ. And hope often arrives through a conversation. So I encourage you to have that. Make sure your family knows what 988 is, how to use it. Seeking help is courageous, and mental health struggles deserve the same dignity and attention as physical health struggles. So really, all human beings are created in the image of God. I pray that you'll rest in God's grace, live in God's community, find your identity in Christ. And most of all, I pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you as you hang up and hang out with your family this summer. Create some time for them. They deserve it. God designed it. I'll see you on Monday.